Conference is all about developing applications, and developing applications is not just about solving problems, but also about dealing with some of the cutting-edge issues that are coming our way. You know what? I'm getting kind of warm. And the thing is that in the Internet of Things space, we have a lot of folks, a lot of activity, a lot of energy going towards making products connecting to the internet. Like a connected toaster. I heard at a conference I was at just on Thursday, and that's great. We need products like that. Some of us need those. Some of us would like those. I'd like to have a connected car seat, maybe. I don't. But my company, Platabase, kind of seeks to do bigger things and encourages others to dream bigger as well. And I think this video encapsulates kind of what I'm talking about.
You mustn't be afraid to dream with bigger, darling.
Oh yeah, Inception.
So let's get into it. But yeah, so what Platabase is doing, my company Platabase is doing is seeking to solve bigger problems in the IoT than the kind of microcosm aspects of, oh, I have this device, I want to connect it to the internet, isn't that great? And our focus as a company specifically is to create solutions people love. We want to solve actual problems, not do things that don't really matter, and do them in a way that makes people engage and be passionate about and attached to those products. That means that we find our center point at the intersection of things being marketable and unique, but also feasible, and most important to the company, meaningful. So this is, well, I'm actually wearing a model of Reemo. This is Reemo. Reemo is a technology that gives you control of the Internet of Things through gesture. Okay, that means, as I said in the raffle upstairs, you can simply connect with the electronics you want to control and gesture to control them. Now, just to set the stage. Back in the summer of 2012, after my father had several strokes, I saw that he lost his ability to control his environment. He lost his left arm and his left leg. His whole left side basically wasn't working very well. This is actually quite common in folks who suffer stroke, and also happens with folks who suffer heart attack and some other maladies. And what that meant was he lost control of his environment. Right? That meant that lots of folks have the the dad chair in front of the TV, and you kind of get there and you feel like you can control the world from that TV. He couldn't get up from that chair. If he wanted natural light in, he couldn't get it. And I said, we're all kind of quintessential masters of the technological universe. Can't we do something that's going to do something interesting to help people? So came up with this idea, and at this time, SmartThings, a local IoT company, was just starting. Nest, the thermostat, which is now a Google company, was a year old. Wearable and IoT were not exactly big things. We exist in this space, intersecting things that are on the wrist, things that are in the home, and gesture. When I talk about when I talk about this experience, I suppose it might be a little bit difficult to fully picture it, what that world actually looks like. So this is a picture of it, if you will. So as opposed to looking at these devices as disparate individual things like the connected toaster, the connected blender, and there's a space for that. At Platabase, we look at the interaction between Internet of Things devices as being something that's fully integrated throughout your life. That's your family, that's the kids, that's the parents, that's everywhere you go. And that's the question then becomes if we're successful as technologists in spreading the Internet of Things and that there's connected devices all around us, how do we interact with and control those devices? Okay? And so we have the understanding that when those devices scale in magnitude and in complexity, the issue will become one of how do I actually interact with and control the devices. We believe that gesture will be a significant piece of that, a very significant piece of that, because it offers a very natural and intuitive way to interact with these things, and the way we do it with Reemo technology, a very scalable way as well. Okay. I'll just go ahead and stop that. So, you know, the thing is how many of you guys have seen the Jetsons, right? Who's seen the Jetsons? Okay, yeah. So in 2012, when we started, the idea of the smart home was, I push a button, I get the food pellet. Isn't it cool we live in the future? And that's really what people thought the smart home was. The adoption was you know, I mean, it's growing. But the question was, why are people adopting this really cool technology? In 2012, here's where we were, or rather at the beginning of 2014, here's where we were, and now here we are after our partnership with Microsoft and American Family Insurance. Let me tell you a little bit about the Reemo system. So it involves a smartwatch app, as well as a phone app and sensors. The sensors are those little orbs that you see there. You can place them anywhere, and anywhere you place them, it effectively creates a link to the internet, to the connected device. So, let's see. If you imagine, for example, how many of you guys have ever tried to surf the internet without using a mouse? Yeah? What's that like?
You need to know your keyboard shortcuts.
You need to know your keyboard shortcut. A lot of tabbing, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, right? Now, the thing is that if you think about, so my first computer was a Commodore 64. I had the benefit of that as a kid. But if you go back to the old history in computing, you didn't have the mouse. It had been invented in the 60s, but it wasn't really applied until like the Macintosh and the Lisa. The internet comes out in that, and you've got a page with all these different links in the internet. How would you actually navigate that with all that tab? It's a bit ridiculous. In the same way, what we're doing when we create connected devices is we're putting links in the physical world. Everywhere around us, when everything's connected, there will be links in this 3D space. Now, tabbing is going to be very difficult. And so what those sensors allow us to do for certain devices is to actually create those links in the physical space to allow you to know what's clickable, what's not, and that you can click on it, or rather, gesture at. Our solution includes developer API, as well as the opportunity to curate and customize gestures and address the sensitivity of those gestures. We have significant cross-platform compatibility with the major players in the Internet of Things space. I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. And we already have corporate development partners working on it as well. Our team includes technologists as well as business development people. In our company, we're a small startup, not too far from here, about 12 folks. But in our company, we have folks who've won international design awards for the design of lighting and home control. We have folks who've shipped products and who've sold companies. So this is technology that will actually move. This slide's a little bit old, actually, or that number's a little bit old. We actually have a little bit over 200 developers. And ironically, most of our developers are out of the country and out of the state, which is kind of a funny thing. We really like to get some more developers here in Minnesota because, I mean, Minnesota, right? We have already relationships and integrations, interoperability partnerships with local company, IoT company SmartThings, Nest. We were doing collaborative demos with Logitech out at CES, and actually, funny thing there, if you've ever been to CES, you know it's a madhouse. There's lots of people shouting and talking and everything. When asked to do a demo with speech recognition, it's hard to hear. Reemo comes and saves the day, right? As well as the eye control platform and AllJoin. So there's a plethora of devices and smart TVs, etc., that we work with. And also, we're partnered with, and now Microsoft is also a corporate development partner with us, as well as Cox. As the introducer mentioned, we've been mentioned in, we've gotten some pretty good press in TechCrunch, Forbes, Electrical Engineering Times, Gizmodo, etc. Now, the context that we're operating in, though, is, I mean, you know, if the smart home's so smart, why is it so freaking dumb, right? It's kind of a mess, and this is the reason why we believe we don't have the adoption that we'd like to see as technologists, right? We as engineers, as developers, we see something's cool, we develop something cool for ourselves and for other folks like us, and it doesn't work. Reemo's developed to be so easy to use that a 60-year-old man who can only use one side of his body and doesn't know that much about tech can use it. Okay? So that's where we're at, and in doing that, we hope to give the promise of what this smart home experience really can be and really should be. I think everybody's seen a slide like this. IoT is going to be big. You know, the internet's going to be a big thing. Watch. And you know, the question becomes, okay, well, this is ubiquitous now. Why don't I use this? This is what a lot of companies are using. They're betting their farm on this interface, right? Okay. Let's go back to the tab analogy. What do I have to do to control a single device? I have to take the thing out of my pocket. Okay, no problem. I have to turn it on. Okay, no problem. I have to unlock it. Okay, sure. I have to go and find the app for that device. Okay, then I have to dig through to find the thing I want within the device if it's a part of a suite. Even if I had one app dedicated just to bringing all the devices I had into one app, Gartner predicts that we'll have well over 300 devices that are connected to the internet in our homes. Actually, one of the numbers I read was 500. That's insane. But if you imagine everything having a sensor in it, that's not really that far out. Are you really going to tab through 300, 500, 100, 50? No, right? So the smartphone is actually a pretty bad scenario. Furthermore, let's say you did. Let's say you went somewhere else and you said, you know what? I want to do that, now I want to bring it to somebody else's house. You can't control it. You're not plugged in. Or you want to do voice. Oh, well, at my home I know that this is light A27. But I don't know that at your house, or yours. Or if I go to this building, I don't know what, I can't remember, that's not scalable, right? So the scalability and complexity of the Internet of Things is a major issue that we think a lot about. What does that mean for Reemo? It means effectively we've invented, patented, and developed a light switch for a world that is not yet fully electrified. That electrification, if you will, though, is coming very quickly. As you can see from the numerous Kickstarters that have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi integration, consumer electronics products, and we're in regular talks with major consumer electronics manufacturers, as you can probably imagine. Now, the ideal interface, the actual way that we'll interact with this world coming up, will be a mixture of a lot of different things. Voice will definitely be a part of it. My PhD is in linguistics. So I explored that first as a scalable option for controlling these things. In the case of a stroke victim specifically, it's not a great idea because you have changes in the voice due to aging, due to certain circumstances. Both of my grandfathers suffered strokes as well, so I'm working out every day. Both of my grandfathers suffered strokes as well. They lost their speech, or their speech shifted. Anybody here who has ever studied another language or speaks another language knows the barriers to entry on that. And as I said, you know, I'm from Georgia, so I can speak in a couple different ways. Most of the speech recognition isn't made for folks in the Deep South. How about that? Okay. So there'll be a combination of gesture, of some phone activity, more than likely, or something like it, of speech. Now, when you develop for Reemo, you're not developing for strictly this hardware. This is advanced hardware. We've been accused in the past, so back in 2012 when Google Glass wasn't out yet and Glass Hole wasn't a word yet, we were accused of being early in the market. The market is now catching up to us. So what you find in Reemo is a 9-axis IMU, BLE, an infrared emitter. These are things that did not exist in the wearables in 2012. They weren't ubiquitous. But then you see Samsung, you see Sony, you see these companies popping out with that hardware in their devices. So the market is catching up with us. And obviously we're working on integration with other platforms as I described earlier. So the point is that Reemo offers a very well thought out solution for how to deal with a scaling IoT infrastructure. How do we actually interact with these devices in an intuitive way, in a scalable way, and in a way that's, as I like to say, grandma-proof, right? My grandmother, she's 91, she doesn't even like to make left turns when she's driving. She doesn't even drive anymore, but when she did drive when she was in her 80s, she didn't like to make left turns, okay? She can do this, and she can do this, and she understands it. And this gesture set, there's only 7 gestures total, including the selection gesture, which is international, right? So whether you're from India or Indiana, it's pretty straightforward that if I did that, I'm asking the laptop to do it. I want to get the laptop. If I do this, I'm trying to increase the lighting or decrease the lighting, or increase the volume or decrease the volume, or lock the door or unlock the door. This is international. You don't have to worry about whether or not the people are Belgian or Bangladeshi or Japanese or from Jersey. Okay? The integration program that we're on is focused currently on smart home, but of course we have healthcare roots, and we'll be going into that area as well as automotive and eventually industrial applications. And actually, when I was keynoting at IoT Fuse on Thursday, got a lot of questions about industrial applications. But currently we're working with corporate partners in the smart home and some of the other areas. And so what that means is that as things grow out, our position will look this way. It's not just the wrist, the home and gesture, but it's this IoT, it's the optical, it's the voice, and that's where Reemo fits in the center of that. Thank you very much. Why don't I give you one more piece of what I mean by thinking big. Oops. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Alan, and I'm Ryan. And I'm Confident Monologue Guy, here to take over your generic and unsatisfying commercial. Do you like these? Do you like these? Of course you do. You yearn for something greater. You want control. I have control. I can give you control with this. With a flick of my wrist, I can rock this baby. I can rock this
So that video is actually, we did that in, I think November of 2013. That video is actually quite old, but we're going to be releasing it soon. We've only shown it in public here in Minnesota, actually, recently. So that should be coming out quite soon. So yeah, that's Reemo. That's the product from Playbase. I'm happy to open up to questions. Yes?
Is there a way to restrict access to the sensors so if you don't want other people to be able to turn on your device?
Absolutely. So context is actually, it's one of the things that I didn't mention deeply on the slide, but it's actually a very important piece in how we interact with these devices and secure access as well. So if I go to your house, right? No, if you go to your house, let's say it's Saturday, 7 p.m., you point at the fireplace, romance mode pops up. Because it's Saturday at 7 p.m. and the system recognizes that you're there and somebody you care about is there. Right? If I go there at the same time, on the same night, and I do that, maybe I just get the fireplace. Or if you have it restricted, then I can't do anything. Does that make sense? So there's a contextual element. There's also an access element. If you have a little Billy you don't want getting into the gun cabinet, he needs to have your band. He needs to know the gesture to open it. He needs to have the permissions. Yeah. So there's multiple opportunities for authentication there. Yes.
Can you describe how the nodes work with the device?
Yes, absolutely. So so it goes through your phone. The device, or rather the software that can run on any smartwatch really, is able to recognize your gestures via our 9-axis IMU. And the sensors, you place them really anywhere. So for example, I could place a projector, I could place a sensor on or near that projector, right, that's projecting on the screen. Or I could also place it right here on the lectern. So I can move it wherever I want. If I want to map that one sensor to my garage door in my bedroom, right, then I could close the garage door or open it from my bedroom. At the same time, I could take that and move it with me and take it wherever, right? It's also, so specifically, as you could see in the Confident Monologue Guide video, the mapping can be 1-to-1 or 1-to-many.
I did see that.
Yes. So you can actually map multiple devices to one sensor, or you can have it just be 1-to-1.
What if a device can accept different sorts of commands?
Oh yeah.
So a turn channel and a volume up. Can you do that?
Absolutely. So you'd want to, you saw in the video with the family, the girl's swiping this way to change a channel. She was channel surfing. So you can do your volume. You can change the state of something. So for example, I can increase the intensity or decrease the intensity, which can be applied to a plethora of different kinds of devices. I can increase or decrease the intensity of a light, of the sound of a music station, of a radio, I could bring the blinds up or bring the blinds down, which is effectively increasing or decreasing the lighting. I can bring the door up or down for the garage door, or I can lock and unlock it. So I can change the color state of something, and I can also change the intensity of something.
Is there a proximity or location involved with that anymore?
Absolutely. So recognizing who's present, what's present, is actually a piece that particularly some of our corporate development partners are actually working on right now. I can't go into too much depth, but there are certain effects that can be maximized when you know that there's so many people in a room or two people.
So you know how many people, not just who, but how many?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, you could do the same thing today with how many phones are here if you were picking up certain signals. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
More or less.
Yes.
So the watch talks to your phone, which the phone then talks to the devices around you.
That's right. It all goes over IP.
You were talking about Azure. How is that used?
I'm sorry. We were talking about
Microsoft Azure. I saw.
Yes.
How is it cloud?
So the question is how are we related to Microsoft in our technology, et cetera?
Well, how are you using the cloud? Because I assume that you put Azure up there that you're using.
We are. So so I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the intro, but Playbase was one of 10 companies from around the world that was chosen to participate in the Microsoft Internet of Things Accelerator in partnership with American Family Insurance. While we were up there, we had, man, this was actually kind of awesome. We had access to the Microsoft research team, as well as a direct line to the industrial designer for lead industrial designer for the Xbox. So we heavily integrated into some of their systems, but not in a way that would preclude people who are working on different systems from being able to use it. So what does Azure mean for us? It means that we're able to push things through the cloud using Azure. If that,
I got a follow-up.
sure.
I don't know what conference this was, but Intel had a demo on using blockchain for Internet of Things.
Could you say that louder?
Intel did a demo using blockchain, so Bitcoin
Yes.
technology and BitTorrent with Internet of Things to really decentralize it. Are you doing anything? Is that anything related to what you guys are doing, or are you more of the high level of just controlling things?
I don't really have a good response for that because I'm not aware of specifically what you're talking about. But what I can say is that we do cloud-to-cloud integration with 90% of the smart home market. So if you're looking at the majority of IoT systems in people's homes and in some offices today, then you're looking at some major players you already heard of: Comcast, ADT, Time Warner, CenturyLink, AT&T. We work with all of their systems out of the box. So if you're talking about something that's going to scale across these different systems, then that's one thing. In terms of things that involve Bitcoin, I'm just not deeply familiar with it yet. Yes.
Question about sensors. I'm still not sure exactly what they are and what functions.
Yeah. So this is a question about what sensors are in the hardware that we've been developing. Well, the first thing I want to say is that the hardware we've been developing since 2012 incorporates a lot of sensors that you didn't see in the hardware that was existent at the time and that is now caught up. The hardware involved is a 9-axis IMU, Bluetooth Low Energy, and infrared emitter. What that gives us is connectivity with the phone, of course, and with certain devices. The ability to control your TV, especially with our partnership with Logitech, and the IMU incorporates, as a 9-axis, incorporates accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer. What that means is that you can catch the pitch, the yaw, the acceleration, etc. Does that help your question at all?
Sort of, I'm just remembering that it's a place of sensor here, a place of sensor there.
Oh, you're talking about the sensor itself.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has Bluetooth and it has IR in it. So it's able to receive signals from the wristband, no matter the scenario, and that's up to 15 meters. Or 20 meters. We're working on extending it, so easily across the room.
So the whole point of the little sensor, if I understand it correctly, is to give you a context in space and then communicate from the receiving from your voice reference to that context.
That's exactly right. So think about the sensor as kind of like the highlighting of a link on a web page. That's what tells you this is an item that is clickable. This is something you can control with Reemo.
So the segment has to be compatible, has to be with the space.
Yeah.
Just being physically close to the type of the sensor.
It doesn't have to be physically close to it. So once you've mapped, and we have some videos on YouTube that kind of describe how to set up a Reemo system. Once you've mapped that sensor to the device that you want to control, you can seriously move that sensor elsewhere. Like I said, I could put it next to the projector, or I could walk out the room with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. You can certainly set proximity requirements. You don't want to take your sensor, move it to Iowa, and be like, hey, check this out. I turned off that dude's lights. You don't want that kind of thing.
Quick follow-on question about the sensors that you actually place in the board.
Yes.
I assume those are battery operated, given what you're talking about. What kind of battery life do you get, and what's the mode of recharge and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So we've been working on extending the battery life of those because obviously those are things you want to have live in space for extended periods of time. We've been crunching past the 3-month mark, if memory serves, and I think we've actually extended past the 6-month mark. I need to speak with our CTO about how far we've been able to push that, because the sensors that you're seeing there are a new line. If you look at some of our other videos, which are not that old. We've actually changed some elements of the design. So I can't speak perfectly to that, but I can say that it's long enough that it'll be a while before you have to replace it. And of course, being a connected device, you'll know when it needs to be replaced, when you need to replace the battery. Does that help? Yes?
So, since other smartwatches are so popular, can you see yourself just somehow syncing with other devices and just selling the sensors? Or do you have to buy your sensor? Right now, it assumes so.
Or do you have to buy?
You guys have to buy your wristband?
Oh yeah, so here's the opportunity, all right, just to be clear. We don't consider ourselves to be a wearable company. We don't consider ourselves to be a hardware company, right? We consider ourselves to be Play-to-Base. What?
Intellectual property then?
Yeah, so by being an early developer of this technology, you're seeing watches come out now from the major players that incorporate the sensors and the technology that we've been working with this whole time. That's not coincidence, right? So by developing for this now, you beat the rush when the glut of apps comes, effectively. That's one of the reasons we'd really like to see more developers in Minnesota, because I went to give a speech in London at the Wearable Technologies Conference and Expo. There's people who already know us, right? So it was kind of funny that way. So that's the thing is, you're working with the technology and the platform so that you're already ready for it. And what you'll see is the software integrated into the major consumer electronics smartwatches as we go forward. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the SDK that you guys are going to be releasing? Like what languages do I have to write in?
Let's see. Definitely, obviously C. I've been lobbying for Python because that's what I used in grad school a lot. And I know that's popular. It's got to be popular in a Google development space. I know that we're also looking at JavaScript, but I think we'll have.
IDEs?
What's that?
What about IDEs? Like just any C IDE will work for it, or?
I believe so. I think so. We've got a lot more information on that specifically. So to give context, I'm filling in for somebody else
Sure.
in this presentation. I'm much more on the. I'm not so much an application developer anymore. I'm more on the there's other
Spring
parts of it.
Spring,
Yeah. So the deeper details of all the pulls. I mean, we like Git. That's not perfectly my area. But we do have information on the website. And we're super responsive.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So, back to the sensor.
Yes.
So you have to have a single sensor for every device.
No. So the question is, do you need to have a sensor for every single connected device? It doesn't actually make perfect sense to do that all the time. So, for example, any systems that are not room specific, like your thermostat, right? That's something that it makes sense to be able to control it by pointing at it. It also makes sense to have it just on the watch, if you will, because that's a system that's kind of ubiquitous, right? So that's actually a feature of the hardware that we've been developing. It has capacitive touch, and it has the option to preload certain systems automatically that are just there, so you can get to them when you need them. But the part where those sensors become really critical or really useful is in certain scalability concerns of IoT. Take, for example, if I wanted to turn off all the lights in this room, I could just say lights. The lights would go out, right? Or I could do one gesture that would get rid of everything. But if I specifically wanted that light and not that light, that's a much harder problem to solve. And so it takes more time and energy to say whichever thing it is that you want to control. It's, a 2-year-old can point at something very quickly. But no, you don't necessarily need a sensor to be able to interact with the devices. But what it does do is it signifies to anybody who's not sure in this early age of connected devices whether or not that's something that they can control with gesture. And it also allows you to map multiple devices to that one. Does that make sense? Great. Other, yes?
How close can the sensors be?
Pretty close. So, for example, have them this far apart. In fact, in one of our demos, we actually have them about that far apart.
Point at them from here, that far away?
Yep, yep. And if for some reason the system's confused, doesn't know which one you got, you would just swipe, just like the little girl did with the TV. You would swipe to demonstrate which one you want. These sensors light up in different colors. They light up green if you've got what you want. That's right. So it's not just, it's like, oh shoot, I selected the wrong thing. Okay, you just swipe. Now you've got the thing that you were trying to get. It makes life easier, huh?
Is there feedback in the wearable?
Yes, so there's haptic feedback. So one of the questions that we get, well, the first question I get when I talk to people about Reemo is, can I use it on my wife or on my kids or on my husband? You know, people are like, you know, like this. But the next question is, what if I talk with my hands? What if I'm doing something? Will I just be turning on my microwave by mistake, right? No. The short answer is no. There's multiple fail-safes involved in that, and there's nothing odd about it. It's all quite natural. So, for example, you've got the selection gesture. You get haptic feedback that tells you, you get a little vibration that tells you you've done a selection gesture. Until you do the selection gesture, it's not awake, right? It's not sending off anything, and unless you're connecting with a device that's nearby, right, you're not controlling it. So you've got both of those separations between things.
It does answer my question.
Great. Yes.
To what extent will the end users be able to customize their gestures versus what us as developers can do to the device? Will they be using a standard set of gestures that they can customize per sensor, or will we need to pre-prescribe certain gestures and characteristics?
Yeah. So at this stage, it's much safer. You know, with the new technology, if you try to bring somebody something, you give them 100 buttons to press to try to do something, they just shut down. Right? But if you're able to simplify, like for example, I've used a MacBook. I use a Windows, but I've used a MacBook. I don't know all the 22 or so different things. Who does? Does anybody know all 20 plus of those? Nobody? This is a room full of developers. Nobody knows all the different things on the Mac. Okay, so it's a little bit difficult. We have 6 core gestures that we've centered in on, and we're giving the opportunity to developers to look at other kinds of gestures. But we put a lot of research and a lot of energy into looking at different kinds of anthropomorphic primate communication, different cross-linguistic concerns. Certainly, in certain cultures, people feel odd about pointing at people, pointing at objects, not so much, right? So we put a lot of work into making sure that the gesture set that we had would be intuitive and scalable across nations. So if there's a unique gesture that we need to create for secure authentication or what have you, the developers have that option. Consumers, not today. Does that make sense? Okay.
I'm actually curious to hear about your research that you've done. Do you have test markets and people using this right now?
Yeah, so like I said, we have corporate development partners right now. Microsoft's one, COTS is one. They're working with our alpha development kits and working out applications for some of their business relationships as well as some of their own internal potential uses. We have a rather humorous video on YouTube actually that we did for an Indiegogo campaign of a guy we call Bob the beta tester, who signifies our senior citizens trying it out. We've done surveys, we've worked with folks, and I myself in the first few months of starting out the company basically locked myself in a room underground and focused only on what does human communication look like and how can it interact with technology. Yeah, we've done some extensive consideration on that, but there's always more work to do. Once you bring it out into a live environment, things get so much more interesting, and that's why we're really excited about not just the alpha program but the betas for the developers that's coming out very soon. I think that should be in July. So the alphas are in April. Some developers will have access to that as well. Does that help? Yes?
Do you work with the present IR receivers, like Xbox One as IR receiver, to use like music system IR receivers?
Yeah, so the question is, will Reemo work with current, possibly not even smart devices that have IR? Well, potentially you'll be able to do some of those things. In fact, one of the first, I think it was the second or third application that we developed was actually controlling your TV with a wearable gesture-based remote. So I'd say from a developer standpoint, that kind of programming is entirely, that might be an option. But as things stand currently with your TV at home, you're not going to be able to do that much unless you programmed it. Great. Any other questions about Reemo technology? Excited? Doesn't the future just seem cooler now? Yeah.
So I came in late, obviously, but what is the retail price of the sensors?
Of the sensors themselves?
Yeah.
I think
if I needed to, would need more sensors.
Yeah. I think we're looking at 35. I think is what we put up. You can check us at getreemo.com. I might not be familiar with the latest BOM bill of materials. In our relationships with these with the distributors of this home automation equipment that I mentioned earlier, there's you'll be able to order. You can order a dev kit on the site and play with it. And to be honest, what the most important thing I find in my own testing is this issue of I've got two things next to each other. What do I do in that context? That's a real. I mean that's a real research issue to try to address on our side. But a lot of things that we're seeing in the market from the models for Internet of Things devices is of two minds. One of them is, yeah, I'm willing to spend $300 on a connected thermostat. The other is, I'm willing to pay a small amount a month for X service. And so, those models are kind of separated. Thank you so much.
And yeah, don't forget to submit the survey. It's DevFestMN's last survey.
Super excited about that.
Yeah.
So just getting gesture catch something.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
So,
what I'm
but it,
that, that's
you kind of got a question in
you know how much time she spends in patient and you then in our system. So it's communication doesn't she walk and time she actually spends on interaction which is another thing to use, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know that
Hey there.
your parts.
Oh, I see.
It really simplifies.
Oh
I
yeah,
would have to go like this.
that or you can scroll through. Oh, this one is full, but if it yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
That's exactly what we're That's exactly right. I mean,
I can get
so we're gonna have a raffle soon for another one. I think the fellow who's sitting over there actually won the first one. We'll be doing another one soon, and you can get it at getreemo.com.
Yeah, so the API design, you said you're not a developer.